Hey friends, welcome back to the library. Today I have with me Miss Maribel from Stuck on Scribbles. I'm super excited to be talking to you. I took a look at your website because we're wanting to look at a planner and I'm like, oh my goodness, it has all the things. So tell me about your reader journey. What made you want to go into doing the planner business as well?
So I've been a reader. I feel like a lot of people, I've been a reader since the Scholastic Book Fair days at our schools and stuff. So it's like those are what really got me hooked. I've been a reader since I was a child. Also, like at home, my mother's not a big reader, but my father is, and I feel like I got that from him, and he encouraged it a lot. And there was a time where I stopped for a while that I kind of just stuck to watching novelas instead of reading books, which was like my first love. And I got back to it maybe, I want to say like 14 years ago, 14 years ago, when that whole big, like the 50 Shades hype was going everywhere. I read that and then I was like, okay, I'm hooked again. Like I need more books. And that's when like my 200 books a year obsession began, because I read so much, and you know what? It's like, I don't watch TV. I don't like at other entertainment. So I like the books, they sink their claws into me and they're not releasing me. Yeah.
See, I want to say I don't watch TV, but unfortunately, I'll read the romance, the dark romance, and maybe a thriller novella, but I don't read a whole lot of thriller or true crime, but I watch thriller and true crime. So like my movies, I'm not a romance junkie. For the movies, I want to read those, but the movies I want to watch, like true crime, thriller, action movies, that kind of thing. Like I need it to go down in the movies, but in the books I'm like, that's fine.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. See, for me, it's podcasts. It's like, if I don't have time, to read a book and I'm like craving some true crime, because I do crave the true crime. I'll listen to podcasts and stuff, and it's very interesting to me. So I'll do that. And sometimes I'll be working, and I'll have it on in the background and I'm listening to it. And that's usually when I don't have time to sit down and read a book, or I haven't found an audiobook that I want to listen to. I'll listen to like true crime podcasts here. So I'm a mom, so I have kids, and I'm like, I can't put that on the TV. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, so I'll put on my headphones and I'll listen to it. And my kids have no idea I'm listening to Sally Got, and making dinner or cleaning up or I even activities with them. Sometimes it's like they totally don't get, that mommy's listening to all this crazy stuff and my AirPods and stuff. And I like that. So that's, like you, I leave the romance to the books. Cause I honestly, I feel like most TV shows or most movies don't do the books justice. So I'm like, I leave the romance to the books, because, all of that, I could imagine it in my head, and my imagination works better than what production could put on TV. Although I will say that I've watched the Bridgerton series, the first couple of seasons, and I think they didn't stick to the books, but they were interesting. Like they kept a lot of what I loved from the books, and those I did watch, and those I did enjoy. But other things are like nothing beats so I'm Mexican, and I listen to a lot of Spanish novelas. Well, growing up, I was like a lot of Spanish novelas, and I feel like a lot of the books that I am into are very much reminiscent of the novelas. And then the novelas, since it's not like a 2-hour thing, it's like something that spans for usually like 6 months. They get all that nitty gritty detail in there, and they're great to watch. But like, who has the time? Who has the patience to wait every single day for 1 hour of, I want to binge read the novelas, which I can't, because they're like, no, you get every day and nothing on weekends.
Not me.
Yeah. See, so I'm like, okay, no, so I need, books, I could binge read them when I have the chance, binge, or I'll listen to the audiobook, or I'll go back and forth between the physical book and then the audiobook. But, if I am really sucked into it, I know I'll be able to get it, all done within a day, which I mean, I think it's like, it's the wonder of reading, right? It's like you get to do it
Yeah.
at your pace, which is,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
great. You do it at your pace. You do it when you have a chance. And then, there's readers who struggle to get through certain topics or to get through certain books. And I feel like it's reading is something that's open to everybody because of the fact that you can do it at your own pace. If you're a slow reader,
Mm.
it doesn't matter. If you're a fast reader, it doesn't matter. Everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
yeah,
a fast reader too. So that 200 books a year is about where I sit
about where you're
normally.
at, yeah.
How has reading influenced you going into the planning business, like trying to organize that?
So I've always used planners. Again, back to my Scholastic Book Fair days and then the Lisa Frank days where she put out her planners and stuff. So I've been an avid reader and a list maker and a planner since my elementary school days. And I had always been searching for something that can do both because I had reading journals and then I had my daily planners and I had all of this other stuff. But I like to carry the physical book with me, I have ADHD. So writing it down and carrying it with me and reminding myself, okay, look it up, helps me to remember things or to know when this is going to happen. And it helps me not miss things and get things done in a timely fashion. And I needed something that put all of that together, but also put my love of reading into one place. So it's like, yes, I read the books, but I want to have a record of, okay, so I read this book and I want to do all the challenges because the challenges are fun. I feel like, again, it goes back to having the ADHD, checking something off. It gives me that shot of adrenaline, that shot of oh, I've accomplished something. So it's I wanted to put these challenges along with my checklist, oh, I got this done and I completed this book challenge and I completed, I finished I did the rainbow challenge, the rainbow, it gives me that the satisfaction. And also it just brings me joy. It makes me happy. And I also, I made my own reading journal first. And I absolutely love my reading journal. And I do love my reading journal. But I also, I said, want to keep it all in one place. And I can't walk out of the house carrying 5 million journals and notebooks. And I just don't have the strength. I don't have the strength. I don't have the purse space. That's important real estate in the purse. And I just, one place. And again, if I keep it all in separate places, I forget that it's there, or sometimes I won't reach for it. But if it's all in one place, it's easier for me to reach. So I also I've been searching for something like this, but you find things that are similar, but again, I couldn't find exactly what I wanted. I wanted something that would fit in my purse. I wanted something that would feel good in my hands. I wanted something that felt like a book. Not just I'm opening up, I'll show you my reading journal. So this is the reading journal, and these I make myself here at home. But I wanted something that didn't have the spiral. I wanted something that had the perfect bound spine that I could crack open. It would lay flat so that I could write in it easily, but that can also feel like I'm not carrying around this giant, spiral bound journal. I wanted something that felt like a book. So it fits well. It looks well on my bookshelves. It looks good in my bag, and I could put it. It fits so easily into my my book sleeves that I have, the fabric book sleeves and stuff like that. So it's that's what I wanted, and so I incorporated my two loves. So my love of reading and my love of planning, and I merged them and made I'm calling my Scribbles, my more than Scribbles planner. Yeah. Which I'm yeah. I'll show you. I'll take you a little bit behind the scenes of my process here. So I was sent swatches for the cover. where you'll see like it's like a soft, buttery feel.
Ooh.
This is the so when you touch it, it feels like people. I know a lot of. So I also have my child on the spectrum who has a lot of sensory issues, and it again was very important to me because I know a lot of people in the reading community are on the spectrum and have sensory issues. So I wanted to bring something that felt comfortable in their hands and felt soft, and it didn't bother them and it didn't irritate them. So this is, I don't think you're seeing like the color. Let me show
It looks
you.
like almost a mauve, like a really
Yes, like a mauvey pink. And so pink is my favorite color, but I understand that it's not everybody's favorite color. So I wanted to do something that isn't like a boom in your face pink.
yeah. It's a nice neutral color that's easy on the eyes, and it's not. It does look like it's almost a buttery velvet sort of feel, which is really nice because some of these books are a little harsh.
Yeah. So that was like, I had my son who was the one that's on the spectrum. I had him like test everything. Like, okay, how does this feel and how does this feel? And he's I love him because he's like, okay, no, this one's not going to work, mommy. Like this one will work. This is perfect. So the input from somebody who has these I wouldn't say issues, but who has these challenges was also very important to me.
Yeah.
So it's like this planner, I'm mixing so many parts of me into it. And the biggest part being that I love to read and my reading and all of that. So you'll see a lot of the elements, like I'll show you. Even my reading journal is very neutral, but a lot of the elements that are currently in my reading journal will be in the planner. So like my
That's
A to Z
cute.
challenge, my 100 book challenge, which I have to fill in because I'm at 90 books now. I haven't had a chance to fill it in. I have my read the Rainbow challenge, my book bingo. So it's a little bit of, you'll see a lot of the elements that are in the journal will be in the planner. Yeah. And I'm like,
I have one of those love-hate relationships with a planner because I was forced to do them in elementary and middle school. They meant like they would you had to have one as part of your classes, and you would write down what you did for that day, and it was like part of your grade if you filled it out. So now looking at it, I can go through and do it and it works well for me, but I forget to open it. So like I'll go through my days and I forget to open it at the beginning of the day and take a look at what I've scheduled out or what I've got going on. And because I'm very like a techie, it's very easy for me to have everything in one place. So like Google Suite is it for me because I use it so much for work and my calendar when I'm booking. Like the podcast platform can connect to my Google. So I've got it where I can schedule out and it slits in on my Google Calendar and I can have multiple Google Calendars on my phone and I just open one calendar and it shows me my work stuff, my podcast stuff, my personal stuff, anything else I've got going on all on one. And I can I end up not touching the paper and I'm like, I feel like a failure.
No, you do whatever works for you. Like I said, anything that works is not a failure. It's like the right thing. If paper works, paper works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like whatever helps you accomplish your goals and make your work day work, and then you're doing it right. Like I wish. No, sorry, I cut you off.
I was just going to say, like, I don't mind having the paper, like, to write out. If I'm in the middle of my day and I know I have a list of things to do and I need to have them done in a certain order, then I'll write them out. And then I'm checking them off and I get that dopamine rush like you were talking about. But as far as, like, using it on a week-to-week basis, like, I use it on an as needed and not necessarily, like, on a daily.
Like, yeah. Which is, I mean, that it works too. If it's if it's like a weekly or a monthly, if that also like me personally, like I need that dopamine hit every day. So I use my planner every day. There's days that I'm just like home doing nothing, like absolutely nothing planned. There's nothing on the schedule, but I'll pull out my daily planner and I'll just the dishes. Put a lot of laundry done. Like I place an order on Amazon for something I didn't even need. Check, got the hit. So it's like for me, it truly is like it just makes my day. Like it makes me feel so much better. So and then also like working with paper helps me remember things a lot. So sometimes like I'll order things twice, but if I write it down, then I'll remember, it'll be easier for me to remember, okay, I already placed an order for that. So it's like, I don't need 2 crock pots to, like there's times where I've ordered both and then I don't go back and check, oh, I ordered this. No, I'll just reorder it if I forgot that I ordered it. So, but if I write it down, it's easier for me to remember that I've ordered it. And with books, the same thing happens with books. There are books that I'm like, I completely forgot about reading like a certain book. But if I've read the physical copy, it sticks to me. If I've read the digital copy, it's like 2-3 months down the line, somebody could be asking me about it. I'm like, what book? Yeah, like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Let me just go back over here. I had a list for 2023. I started writing down the books that I was reading, right? So I started.
Oh, yeah.
We started here and we did a full 50 on 2 pages. And then I had to use this page for a grocery list. So I skipped a page. And then I started with the other 50 to get to 200. Now I know in 2023, I read more than 200 books, but only 200 fit on these 4 pages. And you see, I didn't even finish listing them out.
Uh-huh.
We're well into 2024 and I still have not finished listing them out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at this point, it's fine because it's in my Goodreads. But that was part of my problem is because I read so many different, so the list part works well for me if I have it in I have a feeling that if I could print off a small version of the cover and tape it to something and then do stars and all of that, I would be able to do it fine that way because I would be excited when I got home to go in and print off the little thing.
I
wouldn't necessarily want to write anything about it. I would just want to give little stars and just a smaller, just 2 or 3 of those on a page.
I'll show you. I have that too. So I'm the same, 100% the same way. It does get me excited.
Yes, that right there.
And I put the star rating, the spice level, because I read a lot of romance. And then if I listen to it on audiobook, read it on Kindle or a physical copy. So
I just need a whole notebook of that.
Of that.
just that right there. But because I have a long drive to work, and my listeners are probably going to be tired of hearing this by now, but I have a long drive to work. So I audio on my way to work and on my way home. And then when I'm at work, if I can conceal my book, I'll read the actual physical, depending on what has my attention. Or if I'm kind of in a slump, I'll pull up my phone or my Kindle and read through a couple of novellas. So by the time I get to the end of the day, sometimes I forget, and have I read just 1 book? Have I read 4 because of novellas? Or, and then a couple days go by and it's a week later and I've forgotten how many books I read, which ones I read, did they all get logged on Bookmory or Goodreads? And then I'm trying to get to the piece of paper to write it down and everything. It's just all everywhere.
It's a lot. Yeah. See, that's why I do like reading on my Kindle, because it automatically updates my Goodreads.
Mm-hmm.
When I've finished reading a book, marked it as finished, and it makes me happy that it's there. So if I forget, like, I know I could go back in and see on my Goodreads which ones I've recently read, because there are books, like you said, there are novellas and stuff. They're so short that you're just kind of like, it's just a second of your day. So it's in and out. But so I'll go back into my Goodreads, and with me, since I enjoy cutting out all like I make stickers like for a living. So yes. So I enjoy like printing out these covers onto sticker paper and then just sticking them on there, marking them off. And I do, it's peaceful to me. It's like a lot of people have their hobbies that they sit down and do their crafts and stuff. So this for me is an extension of my work. It's a hobby that I enjoy doing. So to me, it's not like, it is an extra step, but it's not a chore, for me, I've made it to the point where it's enjoyable. It's no longer a chore to do like all of that. So I get it from my Goodreads, and I know there are so many other like reading apps that are great and stuff, but since I'm more of a paper person, I've stuck to the Goodreads. And I feel like if I try to do something else, then I'm going to be scattered, and my books are going to be scattered, and where I've read and what I've read is not going to correlate at the end of the year to what, actually like what I actually read. It's not gonna work for me. So for me, it's just the two steps. It's the Goodreads and my paper journal. And it makes me, it works for me. But again, like whatever works for you is, that's what you should stick to, and never feel like a failure. Never feel bad about it. It's what works for you,
I'm thinking of starting something new, because I did want to start the little paper print offs, because I have my printer here and I have some cardstock, and I think I'm going to do that. But I was thinking, because I really like Bookmory, because at the end of the month, you can download the calendar that shows everything on the day. Yeah. So you can either do it like it can start and stop on the day you started and stopped. And so it shows that book every single day that you read it. Yeah. Or you can have the book just show up on the day you finished. So that's how I have it set up, is like that book shows up on the day that I finished. It's just a little picture of the cover. And so like at the end of the month, I can download the cover and it'll show you like how many books I finished for the month. And then I can post it on my socials. So I really like that, because it's fun. I can go in and add it, and then like the pictures, because whenever I post on my Instagram, I typically post them like me holding them in front of my library. So like if I have a couple favorites, I'll post the screenshot of the entire month and then like a few of my favorites right behind it, and make a little reel for TikTok, a little video.
Okay. I didn't know you could do all of this on Bookmory. Like I've heard of it, but I haven't even tried it. So you know what? I'm going to write that down so I can try it out.
Bookmory is probably one of my favorite things, just because it's like, it also tracks, like Goodreads shows you how many pages you've read, but like it's got a more exact, like what time you started it, how long you've read it. So like you can turn a timer on when you start reading, and then turn it off when you stop reading, so you can track how far you've gone in that time frame as far as pages go. And like with Goodreads, if you forget to start something on the day that you started reading it, when you go in to start reading it, you have to go into and put like currently reading and then read if you finished it, in order for it to count to this year, instead of just marking it read. With Bookmory, you can literally go in and put read and then choose the date you read it, so it still counts that month and year. It doesn't just archive in the background.
It doesn't. Yeah. Okay.
Ooh, and there's still like to read later. And it gives you like daily statistics. Like, so if you don't even do the timer and you just update how many pages you've read, it still counts towards your daily statistics. So it'll tell you like how much you've read in that day, even if you're reading multiple books.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And then it gives you hashtags to use, like according to the book genres that you've read. And it gives you an option for something you've paused, like you don't want to finish right now, so you put it on hold. And then it also gives you like a DNF, which they call books gave up reading.
books I gave up reading. I like that.
It's even got sections for notes. It's
I
really
feel like the
nice.
older I get, the more DNFs, the more it's like, I don't have the time. I don't have the patience, the
I don't either.
inclination to continue reading a book that I'm just not enjoying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 100% that. Like, there are so many books that have been published. There are so many things, like both fiction and nonfiction, that you can go after, that it's just, why struggle and force yourself through it? Now, obviously, if you're doing like an ARC reader or you're beta reading or something, like, you would want to at least get far enough in to be able to tell really whether or not you would want to finish it.
Yeah.
But for me, like within the first couple chapters, I know whether or not I'm going to DNF it. Like, it just
Same. Yeah. Within the first couple of chapters, I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't gonna. There's some books like that are, if they're popular, then I'll chug along to see. I'm like, what is all the hype about? Like, what is everybody loving? And I'll try to get a little further, but most books, it's like, okay, the first 3 chapters, and I'm like, if it's not for me, it's not for me, and that's it. You know, I'm not going to waste more time on it. And it's why I really like Kindle, because you can download the sample, and a lot of times there's books where the sample has told me enough to know that it's not for me, you know. And I'm also like, I have the Kindle Unlimited, so there's certain books that I'm like, okay, I'll read the first few chapters, and if I know I'm gonna love it, then I'll buy the physical book, because it's like I have to have, you know, my book trophies.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm like, okay, so I know I want to annotate it. I know I want to make it I know this book is going to be something that I'm going to reach for again. I know I'm going to reread it. Then I'll purchase the physical copy. But otherwise, I'm like, life's too short to read books that you don't enjoy. And I think my struggle when I was in school, my struggle was that I was forced to read these books that I wasn't enjoying. And I'm like, give me a book that I love, give me a book that I'm interested in, and I will devour it. And I would be walking down the halls in school with my face in the book like this, and bumping into people, and I'm just like, oh, I'm reading, leave me alone. But then if it was a book that I just wasn't a subject that I was into, it wasn't something that I enjoyed, then it was a struggle. It was like, give me the Cliff Notes. I can't. Like, if I have to, just give me the Cliff Notes. And even now, like, if there's books, like if I read a book for, like, I'm in a couple of book clubs. If I'm not enjoying the book and like I could find the summary of the book, I'll do that. I'll listen to the summary or to like the abridged book, like, because like I don't want to give up, because it's part of the book club and I do want to have the discussion. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to finish it. Like, I don't want to waste my time on it, you know?
I love that some of the local book clubs that are happening in my area are doing like a silent book club where they're not choosing a book to read together. You bring your own and you hang out and read in the group. And then after about 30 minutes or so, you can either chat, get up and chat with some of us, or you can just sit there and keep reading. It gives you the freedom to like do whatever. So I thought that was really neat, because it was like, we're not forcing you to read something you wouldn't be interested. Not like they're forcing, but you don't feel the peer pressure.
Yeah. That's good. I wish there was more of that around here. And I'm in a very populated area, and there's still like, it's not.
Yeah.
No, I don't have like a lot of book clubs. There's not a lot of options for book clubs and stuff like that out here, unfortunately.
There's only 2. We have a local store. There's a small business that's in downtown. And they put on their own. So like they've got 3 choices each month, and you can come in and hang out with them and talk about them if you've already read them or if you read them. And theirs is they choose. And if you choose not to do that up one of those book those months, then you just sit out. But there's one that's about an hour and a half away, which is about my daily drive anyways for work. And they're in and out of that city and the surrounding little towns, and they're the ones who do that. And then one just got started in my town that I work in. So they're small. And of course, I'm pretty sure there are probably others with little independent friends and stuff, but I'm just outside of like college getting bachelor age. I'm 24. So I find I have a 50-50 of I either have friends that are single or friends that are married with kids. I don't have much that are married with no kids. So I'm in that area of like no one is quite in the same boat as I am. And so it's hard to like not a lot of my friends are readers anyways. Most of those readers I meet online.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, there's this level of uncomfy because like for work, we have a book club, but it's strictly like self-help, professional leadership, that kind of thing. And it gets to the point where everyone in the room is older than I am by a minimum of almost 10 years. So it's a little hard to find someone who like they not necessarily that they are looking down upon me, but there's this almost air of your opinion is not quite as valid because you haven't been through as much life. And so it gets very difficult to want to voice my opinion.
Yeah. I think I have a superiority complex over,
Yeah. It is that like this is not something that I ever thought I would actually admit on here, but I had to help raise my siblings. So I've been through that, having littles depend on you, having teenagers look up to you and depend on you, and you're still young yourself and having to make some of those heavy decisions. And even now, my siblings will say, you know, there's a lot that you did for us while mom and dad could not. I was the sole mode of transportation between houses because my parents were divorced. I was this, like, you know, if they wanted to go do something with their friends, if they wanted to go somewhere, they had to ask me before they could ask a parent. And even then it was like when they went and asked the parent, they were like, well, she said she'd take me. So I just really need to know if you're going to have a problem with it. And the parent was like, well, I mean, I guess not. Yeah, I was technically the parent because it was like I've already gotten permission from the person who's going to be actually transporting me. So there's no reason for you to say no. And it was kind of one of those, like I had a lot of pressure on me for that because I was also taking the AP classes in high school and I was in sports. So I was out late and I was also working a job. And then towards the end of my senior year, I was working 2 jobs. Getting ready for college. And then even after I went to college, I came back after the first semester and was pushed right back into that as a 19-year-old. So it was just one of those, like, I don't have as much life experience, but I still have some of those same experiences that you...
But you do, though. You do, even though so you're not at that age, but you've had those life experience. So it's like,
that's
you
kind
know,
of where it is.
You went through this stuff a lot younger than a lot of other people. And I feel like some people, I myself am 36. And I think that a lot of people my age and even older, in all ages, honestly, I feel like there are a lot of people that are like, they don't go through these struggles. And then they get to an age where they feel like they have... like, oh, you know, I'm this age now. So like, I know more than you because I've lived this many years, but you haven't had the same amount of experiences. So it's like you at 24 have already lived a lot of life experiences that a lot of people at 36, 40 have not, you know, there's 40-year-olds out there who don't know what it is to take care of a child, who don't know what it is to take care of a household, who've never had those responsibilities. So for them to look down on you because you haven't reached a certain age, it's condescending on their end, and I 100% I get the frustration because I've also had, you know, people in my life, and I'm a very friendly person, but I'm not a doormat. So I feel like a lot of people think that my friendliness means that they could just walk over me, or they can, you know, think that they're better than me in certain ways. And also, again, when I was younger, a lot of people were like, oh no, you know, you're young, so you don't know. And you can't live like that. You can't be like, oh, just because you can't think, oh, they're young, they don't know. Yes, there are some people who are young and haven't lived the life experiences, and, you know, it's like a canon event, they'll figure it out. But there are other young people who've gone through a lot of struggles, who have gone through a lot of heartache, and you just can't assume that a person doesn't know that life is hard just because they're young or just because they're smiling one moment, or you know what I mean? So it's like, I get what you're saying. So I myself try my best to like be friendly and nice to everybody, regardless of their age, their walk of life. I try to be friends and try to like find a common ground with everyone, but unfortunately not everybody is like that, and not everybody is easy to talk to, and you're gonna find people. I have found people who are younger than me who feel like they have more life experience than me, or who assume that they are older than me and want to treat me a certain way because they feel like they're older than me, so that they have the seniority over certain things. And it's like, no, I'm nice. I am older than you, and I have lived the life experiences. So, like, so you roll right there.
That's just one of those. I think it has a lot to do with the generational shift from those who are currently in their 50s and 60s and 70s into those of us who are in our 20s, 30s, and 40s. Like, between those of us who are in the 30s, the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and those in the 60s, 70s age range, because life did look so different. You know, the level of inflation has increased, the level of minimum for life has increased, and just the way people are raised from now and then. And one of the ladies in that book club is in her 60s. A couple of the ladies are in their 50s. And so it was just one of those, you know, life looked completely different, and our parents were such and such, and, you know, they're working on breaking some of those generational curses where they were taught, you know, you sit down and you shut up and you don't speak unless you were spoken to. And, you know, no matter who they are, if they're an adult, you have the ultimate respect for them. And it's one of those that I've had to come into this room as a young 20-something, because I was 21 when I started working there. And over the last 3 years, it's been one of those, just because you are older than me, if you're speaking to me with disrespect, you know, you're going to get what you're giving. Because I am not like, yes, I am young. And the thing is, my mom works at the same job. So there's already this level of, they've known me since I was younger, because a lot of them were connected at previous jobs. So these same ladies have known me since I was 3. So for the majority of my life, they've seen me been growing up. And even the owner of the company, same thing. He's seen me since I was very young. My siblings were non-existent. And so, there's also that level of that, like, they feel like they know me, and I'm like, I am not the same person as I was that young toddler running around. I have my own opinions and values, and some of those do not line up with my mother's. I mean, it just is what it is, because I am my own person. And trying to bring that into a place of as much respect as I can have for you, for the life that you have lived. You know, some of those things are your problems, and you're not going to be able to push them into us as this, you know, this book club. And part of that is like, we're trying to break through some of those emotional traumas and having to get vulnerable in this book club. And it makes it harder for me to want to come home to my home city and be like, let's start a book club, because I'm like, I don't want it to look like this.
Like that, yeah.
It's like, I'm so hesitant, because I don't, not that I'm going to exclude anybody because of age, but it would be nice to have someone who is a little bit closer to my age. Like, I don't mind in their 30s, but once you get into that age range, it's just one of those, like, your opinion is lesser of value because you don't understand these things that we've come through, that we, you know, and so, it just, there's a level of fear there. Trying to start a book club.
You know what it is? I feel like a lot of the older generation just expect the younger generation to just get in line and, you know, like, follow their lead. And that's not how it works. Like, we are all adults. regardless of there being a 10, 20-year age gap. We're all adults and we all deserve the same level of respect. We all deserve the same level of, like understanding. And some people, the way they were treated is like they're trying to push that down on the younger generations. And it's like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And they need to get on with it. Like they need to get on with the times. Like it's not, millennials and Gen Z, we're not putting up with the way that they're trying to treat us. We don't treat each other that way, and we don't expect them. We're not taking it when they're treating us like that, because we can just say, you know what, then goodbye. We can just cut them off. And they grew up with the mentality of like, okay, I have to listen to this, and they have to do this, and they have to do this. And, they're always sticking together. We're not putting up with that. We're like, okay, if this is a bad space, this is going to give me anxiety or make me feel a certain type of way, then I don't have to deal with it. And I feel like a lot of them didn't have that option. So they want to take away that option from other people, and they are not getting it that, they're going to die alone and friendless if they keep acting the way that they do. And even a lot of people in their 30s still see the world like that. And it's like, that's not the way to move forward. And I feel like if you decide to make a book club in your hometown, but you bring in this positive energy and set the lines, set the boundaries, set, the expectations, I feel like the negativity and the negative parts of that other book club that you aren't going to be brought over here, because you are already setting the stage for a more positive atmosphere, So personally, like I feel like when I've talked to a certain group and I already know the type of negativity that goes on there, I'm not carrying it over to another group. And 100% different people, different circumstances, different attitudes, and just setting the stage for a different outcome altogether makes it easier. It makes it, how do I explain it? I'm like, I had my thought and I lost the bubble. But yeah, no, it's just being in a different atmosphere. Sometimes even you pull certain people from a negative spot and put them into a positive atmosphere, and it makes a drastic difference, this is the way it's going to be moving forward. And I'm not going to allow this and this and this. And, if you don't like it, then don't come or don't be a part of it. And I feel like if you set the right expectations from the very beginning, you'll definitely succeed in making a good book club. I've seen book clubs that are like nobody over 30. And I'm like, wait, I'm left out. I can't go.
That's so mean. That's so mean.
Like nobody. I saw I'm like, there was this one that was like a romance book club, and they're like, oh, nobody, it's for for adults, yes, but nobody over 30. And I'm like, I guess our vajays just fall off when we reach 30. Cease to exist, so we can't read romance novels and join the romance book clubs. I felt so bad. I'm like, I guess I'm old now. And also, it's like I do understand it, because a lot of times, like you said, they experience all this this negativity or the talking down to or the condescension from the older generation. So I do understand why they want to do nobody over 30. I get it. I do get it. But I also feel left out. I'm like, wait, I'm not like them. I don't, I'm not going to be mean.
The sad part is I see this not just in-person book clubs between personal connection face to face, but I also see this on the internet. Like when you're coming to I saw somebody not too long ago say they want the 2010 to 2015 era of Bookstagram back, where not necessarily that there weren't as many people, but it was nicer. There wasn't so much more of this pick-me attitude. Yeah. There wasn't so much more of this condescending because you don't have a certain following, or your following looks a certain way, or your page looks a certain way. And I was like, that was pre TikTok.
Yeah.
That was pre TikTok where a lot of people shifted over there. And I feel like there's this certain level of fear that is underlying whenever you get into social media and when you're trying to create something like this, because a lot of people do hold value in likes and comments. A lot of people do hold value in those 30-second videos that are the utmost smallest portion of someone's day.
Yeah.
The utmost smallest portion of someone's personality. And the weight that is held there over that, it's just, it breaks my heart, because I'm like, we should not see this much hate. We should not see.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but again, like the more people, the more drama. So like, because you're mixing all these personalities, but yes, people are definitely taking certain aspects of like book talk a bit too far. Like there are some things that, you know, should remain inside thoughts. And there are some things that are, it's like, for example, people are like, oh, if you read this author, I don't like you. Like I can't stand, and it's like, everybody likes what they like. Everybody likes different genres, different authors, different writing styles. Let people be, as long as what they're reading isn't something that's completely damaging to like to other demographics, then I feel like mind your business, you know? So like I've seen a lot of the videos where people are like, oh, if you read like the dark romance girlies, let them be. If that's what they're into, like they're not going out there and committing the stuff that they're reading in the book. So let them enjoy it.
There has also been this, you can't write BIPOC characters if you're not a BIPOC author.
So with that, I feel like
there's a very sketchy ground there.
Yeah, I do. I feel, you know what it is? I feel like there's authors who do their groundwork, are not themselves a person of color, but they speak to people in the community and they get their feedback and they get the help. And, you know, like I've seen authors who have written like a Mexican main character, and they did their research. They listed the people that helped them out and, you know, the feedback that they got. And then they went into multiple reviews of their book to make sure that they got everything right. And they did it respectfully, you know, and it's the culture, I can't, it's culture appreciation, not appropriation.
Yes.
That's what it is. And me, so I'm bilingual. I am Mexican. When I read, there are books that I've read where like they've tried to put some Spanish in there, but you can tell they just Googled it, and Google isn't going to give you anything. Like if you're going to write about a Spanish speaking person, get a Spanish speaking person to help you with it, not freaking Google. That does frustrate me, because it's like, oh, they wanted to put this out there because they wanted the flair of the spicy Latina, but it's like, don't fetishize us. That's where they're like, oh, they're fetishizing the spicy Latina, and then they aren't even doing their research to do it properly. And then there are other authors who, you know, get their they get their readers. They ask their readers who are like Spanish bilingual people. I can't speak about other cultures, but I can speak about like the Hispanic community, and they'll get somebody from the Hispanic community. Specifically, there's one author who wrote a Mexican main character, and she spoke to not just Hispanic women, but Mexican women, because, you know, Latin America,
there's a difference.
There's a huge difference.
Yep.
And she spoke to these people, and, you know, like she asked for their slang, and she asked for these words, and when in the context of certain words and things like that. So that to me was her showing her respect.
Yep.
And that to me was, you know, she did the research, she did the groundwork, she spoke to everybody, she got everything right. She didn't sensationalize this character's heritage and, you know, the struggles that this character went through. It wasn't sensational. Like she wrote it in a very respectful and like a way that it just sat well with me as a reader. And then there was this other author, which I won't name, who wrote, and like I said, you could just tell she Googled it. Like the phrases weren't right. Like the certain slang that she used were slang that isn't used in Mexico. It's used in other countries, and it wasn't even done right. Like it just didn't fit. and that's when I'm like, okay, you are not allowed to write people of color. You know?
With Spanish especially, you have to be very careful because so many countries speak it, and what is taught in the U.S. classes is a formal Spanish. It is not actually a spoken Spanish. So I've seen this a lot because my grandmother had a housekeeper who was Hispanic, and I don't know what country she was from, so I'm just going to say Hispanic because I don't know if she was actually Mexican. But she spoke Spanish with my grandmother. She taught my grandmother Spanish. And so it was, or great grandmother. So it was one of those, like, my grandmother was born in Panama and they moved between Germany and other countries. So she knew pieces of other languages, but majorly Spanish. And, I went to hang out with my great grandmother at one time, and I told her, I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know much, and what they're teaching me, I already know isn't correct because I have Hispanic friends in the classes who are like, that's not the right word for this. That's not how you say that. And that was in the school that I was, and I eventually transferred schools, and we had a Peruvian Spanish speaker and hit as a teacher, and he was amazing. And it was really interesting to see the difference between Mexico Spanish between my friend and the Peruvian Spanish between my teacher. And just, it's one of those, like, I'm sure this happens in other places because just in the United Kingdom alone, there are different levels of English that they speak in their dialect, and it's English, same as what I'm speaking, but they have different words for different things, different slang. And it's just one of those, I do feel like you have to be so very careful, and that, like you said, the research is dire. It's extremely important to make sure that you're vetting what you're writing, because it does come, there is a level of disrespect if you're not doing your homework. Now, if you've done your homework and something came off wrong to someone, you can say, look, I'm sorry. I did my homework. I had, this many people help me with this. It's just one of those, sometimes mistakes happen or it comes off wrong and somebody takes it differently than you intended. But it did read, like, I did see that on Threads because Threads has become the new thing. Somebody was really angry because a author, and I think this is a different situation, but there was an author pretending to be BIPOC when they were not, and they had written BIPOC characters, and somebody was like, well, if you're not BIPOC, you shouldn't be writing these characters. And I was like, it's a little wrong to tell someone they can't do something, but at the same time, you're valid in this context, mainly because they were pretending to be someone they're not. But if someone did their research, like, for example, if I decided I wanted to write a story and I wanted to have a Latina in my story, a Latina man or Latino man, I would go on the internet and say, hey, is there anyone here who is married to or has a brother or, because there aren't very many men in the reader community, or is there a man somewhere that you can connect me to, or you'd be okay with, helping me out, asking them these questions for me. Because that is just something that I thought about, you guys. Yes. Don't hate me. It's a possibility. I don't know if it's ever going to get out there. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but
if it does, I'm excited. I believe in you.
But yeah, it's just like, you have to do your due diligence of making sure that the area you're speaking out. Some of my favorite authors are Amy Oliveira and Santana Knox. Both of them are Brazilian. And Amy actually lives in Ireland. So she's Brazilian. She was born and then moved, and she's traveled from the States and all of these things. And so there are pieces of these cultures that are in her stories. And she has lived them. She's experienced them. So I know going in, one, I've talked to her personally. So I actually did get to interview, and we talked about her process and everything. And she does her due diligence with research. But she's lived a lot of these experiences, especially being Brazilian, especially speaking the language, knowing. And so, like, when I go into her books, I feel confident that she's accurately representing her characters. She knows she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
So just in case you need some recs.
Thank you.
Just by the way.
Thank you. I'm on a book hangover, so I will definitely pick her one of hers up.
No, I have one. Hold on. Where is it? Where did I put it? Sorry, I'm looking for a book. Well, hello.
You know what? I'm like, my books, sometimes they're in my living room. I have bookshelves all over my house. So like, they're never where I last left them. And my kids love moving things around.
Okay, well, Amy Oliveira and Santana Knox are best friends, and they wrote a book together, and I think it's called No Place for Devils.
I feel like I think I have that on my TBR.
I can't find the actual book to verify that's actually the name, but it has something to do with devils in the name. But I know for sure it's those two together.
Those two. I think I have it on my TBR. Was she on recently on one of your?
Amy was.
Yeah. So I put it. Yeah, I definitely did put her on my TBR.
Yes. Yeah, she's great. I got a early copy of one of her audiobooks right before we did the episode, and I was just blown away. She's an indie author, and she has amazing talent for who she chose as her narrators, and it was just amazing. It blew me away, because I was like, I never thought that. I forget, I work with voice talent a lot for my day job, but I forget how well one person can learn accents and can really improve on those, and how much it affects the character when you're listening to them.
Yes.
And so getting a feel for the character over an audiobook and just getting to feel the emotion as the narrator is really going through it was something else, because I was like, I didn't think I was going to have a connection to this book.
Yeah. But
I did.
No, I feel like the narrators, they could 100% make or break a book. Like, there are narrators that I won't listen to. I'll read the book and I'll love the book, but then I'm like, I can't listen to the audio because because of a specific narrator. And then there are narrators where I'm like, the book I might not love, but I will listen to the whole thing because the narrators made it that enjoyable, you know? Yeah. And then they could 100% make or break a book. Yeah. I was listening to one yesterday, and I'm just like, I fell asleep to that man's voice. And then, so it was a dual narration, and the male narrator was amazing. He did all the intonations for like the different characters, and also for the women when it was his, chapter. And even when he was reading as a woman, like, he did very good. And the the narrator, she was kind of like robotic almost, like it just didn't flow. And I'm like, I wish he would have just narrated the whole book. Yeah, I was like towards the end of the book, and I started I took a nap listening to the man's voice. When I woke up, I had to like go back a few chapters, but I'm like, it's okay. It was worth it.
Fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still subconsciously in there.
Probably. Yeah.
You're listening to this, like, I know it.
I have a list of my favorite narrators, and then it's like, if that narrator is on there, it's an auto buy for me. And even like there's female narrators who do really well with both male and female voices, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's an auto buy for me because they just do so good. They suck you into the story.
So interestingly enough, I actually got started with audiobooks because I found a narrator on TikTok, and she was doing snippets of a book that she was recording for someone. And her name is Laura Horowitz.
Oh, yes.
She is amazing. So she was giving out codes for, oh my gosh, what is the name of this book? I forgot it. One moment, please. Laura, this is important to me now. It was... Okay, it was for C.C. Davy. And C.C. Davy, she's a great author, by the way. It got me sucked into her entire series. The book was Heliacal Rising, and it's the first one of the series. And Laura did a snippet on her TikTok and was like, I'm giving out codes, DM me, this word or whatever, and I'll send you a code. So she sent me a code of the early copy of it, and I plowed through it. So then I'm like, I need to decide if I'm going to finish the entire series because I like the series and what's happened in the first book, or am I going to wait until Laura finishes the series?
I would 100%. Sometimes there's okay, I will definitely wait for the narration. There are books by an author, Joe Abercrombie, and that's an author that I feel like it's mostly men who read it. And I can't sit there and read one of his physical books, but I like the way the narrator narrates the stories. So I've waited until the narrator has completed the audio, and I'll buy the audio because I feel like I can't read the physical book because it doesn't suck me in enough. But then I'm listening to it, and the way he reads the book, 100%. I completely understand you.
I never expected, she's a white woman. And I mean, I did not expect to open this book and hear thick, a mix of Irish, dialect, but it was done so well. So they're speaking English, but they've got this thick Australian Irish mix of an accent. And C.C. Davy's actually from New Zealand. So it was really interesting. I think if my information is correct, I believe that's where she said. I don't remember off the top of I'm just off the top of my head, but in that area. And so, I don't think Laura is, I could have swore she was from the US, but it was just so interesting. That story, I thought it was a novel. It turned out to be a series. And so now I own all of it on ebook. And I haven't even yet gotten through the entire series. And there's a sister series that's interconnected.
Ooh, okay. Well, it's good that you have the e-version. Do you have it on Kindle or Nook? The Kindle. Okay, Kindle. So it's good because if you buy the books on the Audible, since you already have the ebook, you get the discounted rate for the Audible.
Oh yeah.
So there was this book the day before yesterday that I downloaded the Kindle version, and then I went into Audible just to see how much it was. $1.99. I paid $1.99 for a full length novel, and I'm like, a lot of times it's like that. Sometimes it's a hit or miss. Sometimes they're like $7.99 and sometimes they're like $3.49. But I looked at them like $1.99. I'm like, yeah, it's, and then I was so happy that I got the Audible version because the dual narration, I love when they're dual narration, by the way, but like both the male and the female narrators were amazing. And it wasn't, that one was, it wasn't like the chapter by chapter. It was like he actually read every single line that was for a male and she read every single one that was for a female. So it wasn't like she had to, pitch her voice down to sound like a male for certain parts of the book. No, she kept to the female lines and he kept to the male lines. And that's like my favorite type of audiobook. Yes. And I'm like $1.99 for this. Like, I know it's so expensive for authors to pay for this, for it to be read that way. And it was just so good. And I'm like, oh, $1.99. I basically got it for free.
Steal.
It's a steal. Like, you can't, $1.99, you can't complain.
It'll be fine. Have you ever tried to like actually read a book and like pitch your voice up and down for the characters?
I've tried, but my voice is so annoying. I've listened to my voice and I'm like, I sound like a cartoon. I'm like, I hate it. So I'm like, I don't try anymore.
I tried because I wanted to try to get into voice acting, voice work, not just for books, but commercials and things can be done in such manner. Radio stations or TV stations, that kind of thing. Yeah. But I have a little bit of too much of a Southern accent for, really? We have a production manager at work. We do customized radio stations for schools and businesses. And so part of that includes voice work. And I told him, I was like, I noticed that we don't have many female voices. And I have had quite a few partners ask if we had any more. And he was like, well, we actually have one of them that's no longer going to be, working with us. If you're interested, you'll probably want to start going through YouTube and taking some how-to courses and just like matching pitch and mimicking people when you're watching TV and seeing if you can't mimic accents and just find the voice that you really want to be your voice. Because he was like, what you speak with now when you're on the phone with someone or when you're just having conversation is not your speaking voice when you're recording. Like, it's going to be, you have to put on a level of a persona because it does take some acting. And he was like, have you ever taken acting classes? And I was like, well, no. I mean, I did a play when I was young, a play or two when I was young, but that was elementary school and I'm in my 20s now. Yeah. So we were going through it and he was like, you just have to be really careful because even though you don't necessarily speak with heavy accent now, there are still pieces of your dialect that are going to be accented because we live in the South. So a lot of the things like a drawer for a dresser it's really easy for you to fall slack on your mouth and say drawer. Yeah. When you're in the southern part of the United States, our mouth gets a little lazy. And I told him, I was like, well, I was in choir, so I have had a lot of work with diction and how that comes off and making sure that you're speaking with your mouth long instead of wide. And it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And I was watching some videos of Laura's and she was like, you don't think about this when you're listening to it, but most people who are narrators actually have to go through acting classes. Yeah. Because you have to be able to put on that persona jacket and really get into the character in order to make sure that your accent doesn't slip or that, you're really feeling what they're feeling in that moment. And sometimes it takes notes from the author to be like, hey, this slipped right here, or this is not quite how I wanted this conversation to run, or can you redo this section? And so I haven't recorded my voice to submit to our production manager yet, but it's become one of those, like, I'm just slowly still mimicking people to see if I can. And I had a friend tell me the other day, she was like, you don't speak like you have been raised in the South. And I was like, well, it's very easy for me to go lax in a conversation and for those Southern drawl things to show up. Yeah. And so I was like, I did not think it would take this much work, but whenever you're getting used to it, you have to speak like you have a smile on your face 24/7. And then you also have to make sure that when I say your mouth is long, I mean like you're making a long O.
Yeah.
Hoping for a gasp. And so it's just, I was shocked by the amount of work and just really dedication you have to go into it. Not to say that I thought it was easy, but a lot of parents do it for their kids when they're reading them bedtime stories and stuff. So I didn't think it would, but he was like, no, you need to find someone whose voice you really like and start mimicking it to the point where you can't tell a difference between your voice and their voice, and just try to get it so steady. Which is one of the reasons I ended up with the podcast microphone. And I was like, well, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and get started on the podcast because this is fun.
Yes.
And the amount of times I have to listen to my own voice over and over again in a week is crazy.
Yes. And this is good practice. This is great practice, because then, like, if you say, you know, today for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to try to mimic your voice, and you can do that like now. It makes for good practice for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after editing, when I go through editing, I realize how much this microphone picks up. And if I take too heavy of a breath and I'm sitting an arm's length away,
which is, it's rough. Like, you don't think about it as the person speaking, but then as a person listening to it, like it definitely makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to be very careful about how deep of a breath I take, and then like how I'm sitting in my chair. Or I can't, like, there's a couple different editing tools like silence remover or noise remover or something, and the noise remover does not catch my breath. Yeah. So if I breathe too heavy, then you hear me go,
well, yeah. Yeah, no.
In the background, and I'm like, let's not.
Let's fix that.
Sometimes I can't fix it. Sometimes it's just stuck in there because I'm talking so fast, and my mouth does not move as fast as my brain does, but it still moves fast.
Yes. That's me, but sometimes I skip words. Or sometimes, okay, so since I'm bilingual, sometimes I'll be like yabbering away, and then 2 or 3 Spanish words will slip in there. Or when I'm speaking in Spanish, 2 or 3 English words will slip in there. And I'm very grateful and thankful that I've gotten very lucky that most of the people around me are bilingual as well, or have some semblance of either English or Spanish, like some bits of vocabulary in there. So they completely understand it. But then there's times where I go on these like full on rants. And even my husband's like, okay, slow down. I need to, like, he's a predominantly Spanish speaker, and like I'll go on my rants in English and mix in Spanish, and he's like, I'm catching most of it, but I need you to, you know, put the brakes on it a little bit. And it's I can't help it. And my father too, he's like, my father, he's like, okay, I understand the words, but you're not giving me time to process them. And I'm like, sorry. I will edit that.
I don't even think about it when I'm speaking. But I have a feeling, because I did take a few years of Spanish, and my great grandmother having a Hispanic cleaner, and having friends that spoke majorly Spanish. That's what they grew up speaking. And so, there are a lot of times where it would take them a second to pick up on the conversation. And I have to remember they have 2 languages they have to translate, because sometimes it comes in as English and they have to translate to Spanish so they completely understand, and vice versa. Sometimes it comes in as Spanish, they have to, and then a lot of the times my friend would be like, okay, what's the name of that word? The thing. And I'm like, I
don't know.
Do you have it with you? Can you describe it?
Can you? I think that's very common in Hispanic households too, because even I'll tell my kids, "Get me the thing," and I'm just like, "The thing," and they're like, "What thing?" I'm like, "That thing, the thing. You know, the thing, the one that does that thing." It's like, and my parents do it to me too. So like it's a very Hispanic thing. Or instead of pointing with our hands, we point with our chin. And so it's like, yeah, get me that, would you? Just get me that. Like my children, they've gotten adept at like translating or reading the cues and stuff, and I'm like, and my husband just laughs at it. He's just like, "Oh, he's like, they took you out of Mexico, but you're still they took the Mexico out of you." That's I'm like, and then so I'm fluent in both languages, and my accent in Spanish is more of like a rural accent from my family's from Jalisco, which is and it's a beautiful state, but the area in Jalisco where we're from, it's very rural. So my Spanish is from there, and then my English is what I've learned here in being raised here in New York. So when I speak to my children, sometimes I'm like, I want them to get the full Mexican mom experience. So I will thicken my accent. And then when I speak to them in English, I'll speak to them in an accent. And like when I'll like mimic my mother. and then like I'll be mimicking my mother, and I'll be speaking to one of my 3 kids, and then the other 2 are like, "Is Ama here?" Because they call my mother Ama. "Is Ama here?" And it's like, "No, it's me."
No, it's me.
It was me. Like, I want you guys to get the full Mexican mom experience.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So yeah, going back to the voices, my voice, I don't like my voice. I could change it. I have like my customer service voice, my talking to friends voice, my talking to family voice, and I do. And then I have so I can change the intonations, and I can mimic people. And I think that's a very ADHD thing, to mimic the person that you're currently speaking with, because sometimes I'll be speaking to like somebody with like a very thick Dominican accent, and I will copy that accent like, and it's like, "Are you sure you're not Dominican?" I'm like, "No, I'm Mexican. I'm just copying you." And it's yeah. And I just sometimes I don't even do it on purpose. It's like my brain just absorbs it and it comes out.
I actually read somewhere online, I think it was either a psychiatrist or some sort of doctor or something, someone who was well-versed in ADHD. And they said that a lot of people who ADHD, ADD, neurodivergent versus neurotypical, if you're neurodivergent, your tendency is you're mimicking someone, or when they're telling a story, you tell a similar story of your own so that you can connect.
Yes.
And so I found myself doing that a lot as well, just mimicking, or I talk with my hands a lot, so I end up like touching someone, or I'm like, "Me, you." I'm trying to. I told myself, I was like, "We're gonna learn ASL so that we can actually do something with our hands."
Yes. Yeah. Do you know how long I've been trying to learn ASL? I'm like, I'm like, if I hit one, because I hyper focus on certain subjects throughout the year, I'm like, if I hit my ASL hyperfocus stride, I am going to learn ASL, and I'm like, no one's stopping me. My hand movements are going to have a rhyme and rhythm now. Like, yeah. And my husband's always like, "Put your hands down. Put your hands down." I'm like, "I can't." I'm like, "I talk with my hands." Yeah. Yes.
Half the time I don't even stretch them all the way out. They just stay right here in the chest area.
She's doing like the T-Rex thing, right? Yes. Got my T-Rex hands going on. Yeah. That's why I wear so many rings. I'm like, at least I could see something pretty when I'm like doing the hand things.
If it wasn't hot in my house, I would have my rings on, but I do because my wedding band and my engagement ring are not connected. I find myself twisting them. Yeah. They're not soldered together, so I'll twist them. Or like if they're even slightly off, I'll have to, because they they curve together.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So if they're even slightly not connected in the curve, like if it sits off by like even a centimeter, I'm like readjusting it. It's like
Yeah.
it has to sit straight.
I'm like that. With me, my hands, I retain a lot of water, so my hands are swollen a lot. And then when they're not swollen, my rings are kind of just like sliding around back and forth. So I'm constantly like fixing them. So in the wintertime, I'm constantly fixing my rings. And in the summertime, they stay in place and they even dig into my skin a little bit because my hands swell up a lot in the summer. And I've gotten this like adjustable ring that I can make bigger and smaller and just make it fit. But I do the same. I'm like always playing with, like, especially the ones on this hand. These two, I'm definitely always playing with. My engagement ring and my wedding band. Those are pretty stationary. Although, like they're not connected, but they're not interconnected either. Like they're standalone pieces.
Mine were bought as a combination. So like they have this little W swoop going on.
Yeah.
So that's how they sit on the outside. I need a second one to put on the other side. Then I can solder it together and have a full piece. But my husband was like, I highly doubt you'll be able to find a piece that matches. And I'm like,
have it made. Go to a jewel. There's so many jewelers that will work with you. I mean, even if like there's none local to you, you can even find jewelers online that'll work with you and that'll help you bring your creation to life. That's what I've found. I think the hardest part for me, the hardest part has always been like, oh, how am I going to have this done? But once I find the right person for the job, then after that, everything's easy. The same thing was like with my planner. I was always like, how am I going to do it? And I spent months trying to make it myself, months. And I'm like, this is it. It's not working. How am I going to do it? And then I found the right people that led me to the right destination. And now, I'm having it done the way I want it, the way I envisioned it. They're bringing my vision to life.
Yeah, it is all about who you know, for sure.
Yes. And research. And it's definitely networking is a huge part. The more experience the more people you meet, the more connections you can make. And the more doors that open up for you. So networking is a very important part of many things, of just life in general.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, look, it's been an hour, almost an hour and a half.
It's so easy talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I had so much fun. I always do this. I get on and I get like the first 10 minutes in and I'm like, this one might feel actually like it's been that long. And then I just get talking and I look up and I'm like, oh. Guess not.
Yeah.
It's fine. I did it.
How long? So how do you shoot? Like, do you have a goal of like, oh, I need to have this amount of minutes, or?
My goal is roughly an hour of workable minutes. Some of it, depending on the sound quality, depending on the conversation, if there's pieces of what I said that I don't want to go in there, and so therefore I have to edit out some of the responses. But yeah, roughly an hour. Most of them have been over an hour. The average is about an hour and 10 minutes. There are a few that were 45, 55 minutes. The last one that just released yesterday, and I'll probably end up editing this out, but it ended up being, there was a storm coming through. So we were on for like an hour and 45 minutes, but we only actually got through an hour and 8 of workable back and forth conversation, because it was like, the storm would go off and then her internet would flash, and so it would go black and I would have to wait for her to come back on. Yeah, so for the most part, about an hour and 15 is what we work with.
An hour. That's good. That's a good length.
Yeah, it's a good length. I don't feel like it's too long, because I feel like 30 minutes you wouldn't really get through enough
I know.
especially when you're
No.
talking about books. When you're
Yeah.
talking about books,
Yeah.
it's one of
I mean,
those, it's so
I
easy
could
to
talk
go
about
on
books
forever.
forever. Yeah.
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 So
No, I
it's
feel
one of
like it's
those, like,
perfect
if they feel
also.
like,
I'm sorry. I feel like it's a perfect time also because like when I've been, because I told you I've been like binge watching your episodes. So I've been like, what I'll do is I'll put them on while I'm cooking, so I'll be in my kitchen and I'll be cooking up and listening. And I'm like, I'm talking to myself, but like agreeing with what you guys are saying, or like, oh no, putting my opinion in. And I'm like, my son, my 7-year-old, the other day walks in and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a podcast." He's like, "So then why are you talking to them?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I feel like I'm in the conversation too." I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I love
I love
it.
that. Thank you. That was kind of my goal. Was I wanted it to be something where, like, if you're listening, you can go in and have your conversation as well, and you're like, oh yeah, or oh
Yeah.
no, and it's really laid back, and it would make you either want to get on or message me and say, hey, have you thought about this? Could you talk about this? That kind of thing. I'm really trying to keep it. I don't want this to be like an exclusive thing. I really want it to be anyone and everyone who wants to come on, who wants to talk, who wants to chat. And I have friends I've asked, and some of them are like, not yet. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And, for me, I'm not set on having any certain numbers of listens or views or anything like that. It's successful already to me because I've been doing it since March.
Yeah.
So,
and you're enjoying
to
it,
me,
which is like,
yeah, yeah.
which is
Like,
very
I've
important.
got 13 episodes up. I missed maybe 2 weeks just because I had a lot of stuff going on after Readers Take Denver in April. And, but 13 episodes, I mean, that's great for me. I get a couple listens, a couple views. I have a couple subscribers. I have people who, that are in my Facebook group, and they love to come in and chat, and I'm getting new authors coming in, and it means a lot to me just because I wanted to be able to make those connections, because I feel like some of it, authors sometimes are so focused on promoting, and readers are sometimes so focused on just trying to cram as many books in as we can that sometimes we lose that connection between the both. And so that was kind of,
and I love that you have indie authors on, because I honestly, like, my favorite books have been written by indie authors. They've been,
mine too.
I've been like, there's books that I fell in love with way before, the author was published, and, was like by a big name brand. And so, yeah, I feel like you find all these hidden gems, and there's so many out there. It's so hard to get to all of them. And I love, like, you're putting the spotlight on them. So it helps me as a reader find my next favorite read.
My goal is to stick with the indies, but I'm just going to tell you now, if someone like Harley LaRoe or Rebecca Yarros just happened to be like, hey, do you want to chat?
Yeah, no, don't say no.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not saying no.
Yeah.
Not saying no. That was just like, when I had Amy on, she has, a couple thousand people between her social platforms. And I was like, you're best friends with Santana. Like, that would be crazy for me if Santana would want to do it, because, I mean, obviously, they're best friends. They're going to talk about stuff. Yeah. And I was just like, whatever, if the powers that be decide that that's what happens, that's cool. If not, it's not a big deal. And ultimately, even if people just look up the podcast to find her episode, that's cool with me. Like, I don't care. Yeah. They get to know more information about her. They get to know more information about me, and maybe they listen, maybe they don't, maybe they tell their friends and their friends come and listen and they decide they want to stay. Yeah. It is what it is. Although I do need to figure out how I'm going to do my outros from now on, because you would think that I need a welcome message, but I'm just like, hey, let's go.
Yeah. You're doing great. I love it. You're doing great. I'd be so intimidated. I'm like, what did I say? I tried this one time. that's why I'm kind of thankful for TikTok, because I put a few videos on TikTok. But before TikTok, like I tried to do a YouTube, and it took me like 20 takes to introduce myself, and then I just scrapped it. I was like, no, like that's not. I'm like, okay, so some people call me Maddie, some people call me Maribel, some people call me Maddie Maribel, and it's like, you know what? That's it. Like it is what it is. I'm scrapping it. So I think you're doing great.
I'm telling you right now. You said Maribel, and I was like, it's the Madrigals. It's a Disney movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, right. Here in this house, my kids are obsessed. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a great movie, first of all. That's a great movie.
It is. It is. It has, and it's just like, it has all our generational traumas, but it also has all this beautiful and culturally rich stuff to it. So yeah, it's an amazing movie. Yeah. I love it.
Yep.
It's on repeat in my house.
In mine too, and I don't have kids, so I'm just telling you.
Hey, I didn't have kids until I was 29, and my video library was full of kids movies. So yeah. Yep. Those movies are for everybody. And there are jokes in there that children don't get. Those are for us. Yes.
We went to Disney World for our honeymoon, and we're going back next year. So I have no qualms about being a Disney adult, because I am.
Yeah.
It is, you know honestly, what? They wouldn't have alcohol at Disney if it wasn't for adults.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also, I feel like, honestly, like small children do not enjoy Disney. Like I refuse to take my children to Disney until they're at an age where they're actually going to enjoy it, and it's going to be like a good experience for them, and they're not going to be just whining and crying all day and being upset because they want to do this, or they don't want to wait online, or they don't, like, so we've held off on taking them to Disney, because I'm like, no, I want them to be present and not just have pictures of like some maybe decent halfway happy memories there, Yeah. And I'm like, Disney is a lot of places in Disney that are for the adults. Like you said, there wouldn't be alcohol in Disney if it wasn't for the adults.
Just saying. But no, and I feel like part of that is Disney went so all out with their theming, like the ground changes as you shift into a new section, like no matter what park you're at, like the trash can design changes, everything. So it's one of those, you want to be able to make sure that they're at an age where they can truly appreciate like all the different things that they're walking through, because there are hidden Mickeys, little Mickey shaped things all over the park. And like even now we've gone and we spent 4 full days, like one day at each park from open to close. And we didn't see everything. We didn't visit everything. And it was just one of those, like, we're watching videos now on the internet and we're finding other things. And we're like, oh my gosh, we didn't see that. We should have, and my husband has a list of things that he wants to go do when we go back.
And honestly, like you did that from open to close for 4 days. If you had children, you wouldn't be able to do that, because it's like they have to stop for a potty break. They need to take a nap. They're hungry. They're tired. They don't want to walk. There's so much. And it's like, nobody's enjoying it.
Oh, yeah.
So girl, you be a Disney adult and enjoy it while you can. Enjoy it as much as you can.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I had a good time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, me too. Thank you for having me. This didn't feel like an hour and a half. No, it never does. Yeah. All right then. Thank you. Have a good